Nicolas Cage is one of the most successful movie stars who ever lived, an Academy Award winner, the face of some of the biggest blockbusters of the 90s and 2000s. He reportedly earned more than $150 million from his films. And then he bought a dinosaur skull, 2 castles, a private island, and a pet octopus, and nearly lost all of it to the tax man. This is the story of what Nicolas Cage spent $150 million on, and why the way he clawed his way back out is even stranger than the way he fell in. Here's the twist that makes Cage different from almost every other star who has gone broke. By 2009, he reportedly owed the IRS more than $6 million in back taxes from a single year, and his properties were sliding toward foreclosure. One of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood was, on paper, in serious financial trouble. But Nicolas Cage never filed for bankruptcy. What he did instead is the whole reason he's still working today. And it flips the usual celebrity money cautionary tale into something you can actually use. Stick with me, because the way out is stranger than the way down. First, understand just how much money we're really talking about. All through the 90s and 2000s, Cage was a bona fide box office titan. Con Air, Face Off, The Rock, the National Treasure films. These were enormous global hits. Cage commanded paydays that matched, reportedly pulling in as much as $20 million for a single film at his peak. He had already won an Academy Award for leaving Las Vegas, which meant he carried real prestige and blockbuster muscle at the very same time, a rare combination even among A-list stars. Throughout his career, estimates put his total earnings well north of $150 million. By any measure, this was generational wealth flowing straight into his hands, year after year. And that is precisely what makes what happened next so instructive, because earning a giant fortune and actually holding on to it turn out to be 2 completely different skills that almost nobody warns you about the gap between them. So what do you buy when the checks are that big and the taste is that wild? In Cage's case, a collection so strange it became Hollywood legend. At one point, he reportedly owned as many as 15 properties at once. 2 European castles, a private island in the Bahamas, a New Orleans mansion said to be one of the most haunted houses in America, even a 9-foot pyramid tomb he built for himself in a cemetery. And here's the thing to hold on to as the list rolls by. Every single one of these felt like wealth, but every single one of them cost money to own. The properties were only the beginning. He reportedly paid $270,000 for a dinosaur skull, outbidding of all people, Leonardo DiCaprio, then voluntarily handed it back when it turned out to have been smuggled out of Mongolia. There was a rare first-edition Superman comic, a fleet of exotic cars, and, most famously of all, a pet octopus he reportedly said actually helped him with his acting. Any one of these is a great story. Stacked together, they are something else. A spending habit with no ceiling, running flat out against an income that, however enormous, could not stay that high forever. Somewhere in that gap between what came in and what went out, the trouble was quietly being built. And this is the real heart of it. Cage's problem was never that he stopped earning. It's that his spending had no brakes, and nearly all of his wealth was locked up in things that cost money to own, rather than things that made money. 15 properties don't just sit there quietly. They carry property taxes, upkeep, insurance, and staffing, month after month. Castles and private islands are trophies, not engines. They take cash in and give none back. And that is the quiet distinction that decides these stories. An asset that grows while you sleep builds you, while an asset that sits there being admired slowly bleeds you. Cage owned a great deal of the second kind and remarkably little of the first. so money poured out to maintain a sprawling collection, while the tax bills quietly stacked up in the background. Cage would later put much of the blame on his business manager, suing him and alleging the finances had been mismanaged into what he called financial ruin. The manager fired right back, arguing it was Cage's own runaway spending that caused the whole mess. The truth is probably a bit of both. But the underlying mechanism is the lesson worth keeping. When the things you own drain cash instead of generating it, and nobody is carefully watching the bill, even a $150 million fortune springs a leak it cannot survive. By the end of the 2000s, the bill finally came due, quite literally. The IRS reportedly hit Cage with more than $6 million in unpaid taxes from just 1 year, part of a much larger tax tangle, and then 2008 hit. The same castles and mansions he had treated as investments were suddenly worth a fraction of what he had paid for them. So much of the empire had to be sold off anyway, at a punishing loss, at the worst possible moment to be selling anything at all. One of the biggest movie stars on the entire planet was watching his trophies get liquidated one by one to cover what he owed. On the surface, it's the same fall you've seen 100 times, a giant income, an even bigger lifestyle, and a hard reckoning waiting at the end. But this is exactly where Nicolas Cage does something almost nobody in these stories ever does. He didn't declare bankruptcy. He didn't vanish or hide. He went to work, relentlessly. All through the 2010s, Cage took role after role after role, a genuinely punishing pace of films, many of them low-budget action movies that went straight to video. Critics mocked the sheer volume, but there was a plan running underneath the grind. He was earning his way out, paying down that enormous tax debt one paycheck at a time, flatly refusing to walk away from what he owed. And it worked. He cleared the debt. Then something almost poetic happened. The work paid off a second time. That same stubborn willingness to keep showing up and acting carried him straight into a real career renaissance, with a run of acclaimed later films that reminded the whole world he was one of the finest actors of his generation. Think about what that actually took. A man who had once owned castles and a private island, choosing to show up on set for small, unglamorous films over and over for years until the debt was gone. There was no shortcut and no bailout, just work. He didn't merely survive the hole. He worked his way out of it, dollar by dollar, and came back not just solvent, but genuinely respected. So here's what to carry out of all of it. First, trophies are not wealth. A castle, an island, a dinosaur skull. These are things that take money, not things that make it. And a fortune poured into them can drain away far faster than you would ever believe possible. Real wealth is the stuff that keeps working while you sleep, not the stuff sitting in a display case quietly costing you money to keep. And second, the hopeful half. Nicolas Cage proves you truly can outwork almost any hole if you're willing to swallow your pride and grind for it. He chose relentless effort over bankruptcy and earned his way all the way back. But notice the catch buried in that comeback. He had to earn a whole second fortune to undo the damage of losing the first one. And there's a quieter point hiding inside that too. Cage's spending never looked reckless in the moment. Each castle, each rare object was something he could clearly afford that day. That's exactly how it gets you. It's rarely one insane purchase that sinks a fortune. It's 100 affordable ones, stacked on top of each other, with no one adding up the total. The far easier path is the exact one Cage learned the hard way. Don't just make the money. Keep it, watch it closely, know what everything actually costs to hold, and never once let the things you own quietly start owning you. If you enjoyed this one, that's exactly what this channel is here for. the real stories behind the money, and the lessons quietly hiding inside them. Subscribe and stick around, because the next story takes on a completely different kind of fortune, and a money mistake you'll recognize the moment you see it. You won't want to miss it.